afternoon. I'm excited to talk to you about some of the things we've had in the works for the CRSurveyor application. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing a screen here, excuse me. I'm hoping to find a way to switch between applications, so one second.
Make sure the window is up behind the Zoom before you click share, so it'll be available to you.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
Make sure the window is up behind Zoom and not collapsed in like your tray. Otherwise you won't have it available to share.
Okay. All right, well, show all windows. Let's do, well, we'll start with the PowerPoint. I may switch over here in a little bit, but I thought I would start by just walking through some of the general concepts Stephanie mentioned to make this, really an overview and introduction. So we can start there and then have you guys just be open and ask questions. Definitely doesn't have to be formal. So today we've got our partnerships here. Again, I'm Laura Wilson with GISInc. We are a GIS services company that support all sorts of local and state agencies, nonprofits, private sector, in implementing GIS at any level. So that may be very simple to cloud deployments. And we've been, had the opportunity to work with this group on a digital surveying tool over the past, well, it's probably been going on for 5 years. I think I came in the last 3, and just the capabilities that are out there now have grown enormously. What used to be really a server-based technology with quite a few configuration steps and custom code is now something we can just configure and deploy in simple steps. And there's out-of-the-box tools to allow folks to do digital surveying. So some of the goals really were to, and I think this even comes out of Hurricane Katrina, if we go back, an easy way to get a survey in the hands of volunteers in a digital format, get people off paper, and then have that data be easily transferable up to a state or a national level, right? Get everybody speaking the same fields so that it's easier to share. And to enable volunteers to do this really without a lot of training. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how we've got this set up. We currently have 2 different modules that we're supporting. One is an architecture survey, and we'll do some demos here in a little bit. And one is more focused on disaster recovery. The architecture form has a lot more information that can be collected. So we've worked to define those, and really I think the value behind both of these is the thought that's gone into what should be collected, what are the standards, what should the pick lists be, and that was really Stephanie's group and the National Park Service driving that. So the common data format is really important. That's probably the value in this whole thing. And then how do we get that in the hands of the volunteers is using the Esri GIS platform called ArcGIS Online. So we can talk a little bit about that. Again, in the last, really 10 years, we started hearing about the cloud, platforms as a service, software as a service, but I think the last 5 years we've really seen people adopt that and actually make it more of a mainstream thing that's happening. And with the GIS software, with Esri, the software company, their platform is ArcGIS Online, and it has certainly grown in its capability and ease of use. So we have a database, and we can basically publish that up into their cloud, and it lives up there. The data gets collected. We have maps that point to that, and then those maps you can download the Esri field applications and access those from any device. So we're not making an application or maintaining it or deploying it, or simply using the Esri platform as a way to access that and collect the data. So this key benefits are it's simple configuration, very low cost entry point. There are some licenses required and we can talk about that, but it really enables the different communities to have flexibility and to use a platform that is already a standard in most organizations. Does anybody have questions? Just more information on ArcGIS Online. We'll pull that up. We'll look at Stephanie's deployment and you can see how things are configured in just a minute. Otherwise, we can go on here. We want this to be accessible to all different levels of organizations, from tiny communities who may have one person to large state agencies, and know that there's just different levels of expertise, right, across these organizations. Some may never have seen this before, so we would say that they are a novice, right, and they might need some more help to get it up and running and to learn how to use it. And then you have folks who run their entire GIS cloud themselves and they've got hundreds of folks doing things. So this is really can be tailored to support that range of skill sets. And it's mostly in just how much help an organization needs to deploy and understand and take on administration of the tool. So we talked a little bit about using Esri's cloud. You don't have to buy any software to manage or install, but we do need some licenses. And the way they license those is by the user. So by a person, it's called a named user. So I would actually get a license allocated to Laura, and I would have, you can buy at different levels. So the people who publish the solution need what they call a creator level license. And that is permission to create maps and publish that data and own the content. A little bit higher level. And then the people in the field, the volunteers or staff that are actually walking around doing the surveys, they do need a license, and it is tied to a username. And they need what's called the edit or field collector license. Esri, as in most software companies, change things every so often. So recently they've renamed these user levels. So if you have questions on that, we can walk through it. There's also some great links. This is a fairly inexpensive level license within the like $100 a user range, I think, but they do packages, they have nonprofit licensing. Most organizations we've worked with already have these in place, and it's usually you're just assigning them to the right folks. So that's the entry point, and let's talk about how it works. So State of Louisiana was one of our clients, and this was their form. It was a digital PDF that they were working with. You can see they'd done quite a bit to get, pick lists in there, but it was still captured in a PDF. So they had some standards, they had some data consistency, but there really wasn't a spatial component to it. And then the data was in the PDF. So we moved to implementing CRSurveyor, and they're just one example. Don't be scared off by the number of fields here. Walking a little bit through the data, we've got a point layer, right? So we're going to capture an XY location in GIS, and we called it resource. It could be a building, a structure, and then it has certain criteria about it, right? And then we have some tables of information that go with it. So basically the building information is, when was it built? Is it still there? Is it in good shape? Those kinds of pieces of information. And then the tables can usually be one to many, right? So a building may have multiple additions over time. It may have multiple chimneys or windows, and there's quite a few related tables. And so we'll pull this up. I just want to give you a little foundation on how the data is structured in the standard. And then we've got some pick lists defined, and this I think is where a lot of the thought went into. all of the different materials that might be used for building things like porches and rails, roof details, roof materials. These are all already built into the database for you. So when you say this building has a certain type of window, the pick list for window material, glazing, operation, those are all already pre-populated for you. With that said, there is flexibility. These pick lists are flexible. So we've seen, you know, for each organization you can come, and for Louisiana it was a parish list, right? It could be a county list or a zip code list, city list. You can customize those for your area, your organization. So while there's defaults in here, we do recognize that folks may or may not have the same set of lists. Architectural style might be one where if you know you don't have any Spanish Mediterranean, you can simply hide that. We can also hide certain fields. So there is flexibility, but the underlying data structure and data model is retained again for sharing. So the last piece, and this is just a little bit of how do we link these things together from the building, those tables, and this is chimney, right? We said we can have more than one chimney. There's a couple fields that tie those together, and you'll see these ID fields, and those are the things that act like the glue for keeping the data hooked up together. So we have the data and we publish that, and then we create what they call a web map application, and this is where we get to apply the symbology, and when you click on it, the pop-up and the what does the map look like in the background, and then we share that out and we collect data. So what I might do is jump over to a demo real quick. I'm just going to stop sharing, and Stephanie, you know, jump in if this is useful so far, if we're too far in the weeds, let me know.
Good. This is good.
Okay. Let me share. It really likes me to share one application at a time. So we're going to go to the Collector app. And can you see, we've got this ArcGIS Collector app. Now I'm on a Microsoft Surface, so I can actually run the Windows version of this. It would run on any iOS or Android device. There's a supported list, but most out there would run this. It looks a little bit different in each of the different devices, but it would be, you know, something we could take out in the field. Because I'm on a Surface, I can resize things, and it's a little bit easier to demo than running off my phone. So when you come in, we actually sign into our ArcGIS Online account with one of those licenses that we saw before. So I'm actually logged in here as Stephanie. And within that, you can have your maps that you have access to, what's been shared to you. You can do favorites and recents. One way I like to get around is through a group. So within an organization, you can set up a group of users. And that's what we've done here for NAPC. We have a collector group. It's a great way to organize your maps. As you might imagine, over time, an organization like Louisiana or Texas would end up with lots and lots of maps out there, and groups are a nice way to organize and sort by date or owner. We can do that real quick. And of course, it's taking a little while. That's odd. Just refresh. I've had this open for a little bit. So here's the one that we want to access today. So we've named the CRSurveyor, and we're going to look at the architecture map for point collection. And there's a couple ways to access this. You can say, I have a cellular device. I'm going to have access to the internet in the field. Or you can start by saying, I'm going to be offline and I know that I won't have connection. If you want to go offline to start, then you would download the map ahead of time. So that's built into the technology. Users can pick which way they're going to do it. When you open the map, I have the online version here, it'll zoom to a location. Hopefully that's where you're collecting. It has fairly good GPS, and we've documented this. Or in this case, maybe I want to collect somewhere else, like downtown Raleigh. I'm in North Carolina. So I've had fun, Stephanie, adding some historic buildings from one of the older universities here in town, just for fun. So you can collect where you are, and you saw that dot, or you can zoom around. When you start to collect a point, it's as easy as we've got our layer here. You just click the plus button, and we could say, let's do the Performing Arts Center. Actually, I had that backwards. Let's collect the Performing Arts Center. And now we can start to see why the data structure is so important. All the thought that went into those pick lists, you can see here. So does the resource exist? I mean, we might be capturing things that were there in the past. We can give it a condition. Ruinous is always a fun one. There's open text fields, so site description can be as long as you want. We have some city, state, town. You can see pick lists. Again, if your organization is always in the same state, you can hide this field. We could turn the zip code into a pick list. There are some nice features like date. It'll capture the current date. And we have ranges for things as well built in. So I'm just sort of skimming through some of these fields here, but quite a lot of thought has been put into the standard. All of the fields that we're seeing here are also rearrangeable, and we can talk about how you might do that. So if you wanted to make the form shorter, we can hide them. If you want certain things to pop to the top, we can hide them to sort of improve the user experience. You can also attach photos to a location, and actually I can just browse to one of these. I have some old photos here, and then you click submit. So notice I didn't have to fill everything out. We want this to be usable for the volunteer in the field, recognizing there's a lot of things you could collect. They may do partial and then come back. If you want to edit again after you've submitted, you could come back after lunch and click edit. One of the interesting things about Collector, this application, we did the building first and submit it, and then we can go add that additional information about it. So let's say we wanted to add window details. When we looked at the database for, this is that other table. So the information will be linked, and we're actually creating a record in that other table. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert here, but we can just show you some of the pick lists. You can see I picked a window because it really has a lot of options for windows. Again, a window can have its own photo as well, and you can put in as many as you want. This one has those nice rounded casements, and again, then we submit. So field collection, the idea by using these applications is that we didn't have to write this application. We have flexibility in the configuration of the data. It's going up to the Esri cloud. You can view and edit existing points if you need to go back to them. It has nice features like searching for addresses. You can put additional GIS layers behind this if we wanted addresses or parcels or flood zones. That's all built in. So a quick intro to the field editing component. And then what I'll do is zoom over into the dashboard. So again, just swap sharing real quick. Open it up. Does anybody have kind of questions on the field part? This is generally what a user would see. All right.
I don't see any questions. Go ahead. Thanks, Laura.
Okay. Sorry. It's hard with, quiet.
Of course.
Quiet group. So let's sign in. And then this is ArcGIS. This is ArcGIS Online, and I should probably go to the right one. So NAPC has an ArcGIS Online organization. NAPC maps.arcgis.com. This is all hosted in Esri's ArcGIS Online Cloud, so Stephanie doesn't have any software installed anywhere. And within that, I'm going in as the administrator, so you'll see sort of how it's organized. This is where we organize our content. So we have been working with them to create a better folder structure in the last couple weeks. It's almost like SharePoint, if you think about it. You can create folders of content, you can name things, and it's always important to start as you mean to go on. So we have the Surveyor architecture. This is the master module. And within that, we've got a couple different things. We have our database. So we actually have a point database, and this is where our data has been going. And then we have a layer that points to that. And then we have a couple maps and dashboard. So what's interesting, if we go into the points layer, we can look at the data. We can download it from here. We can set up criteria. Here's our buildings. And then we have those tables. So it's just what we were showing you there. And then you've got lots of options here to come in, and you can download and export at any time. So for reporting purposes, you could grab Excel. We're into the GIS features. You can create views of this, and different sharing and metadata is all built into the platform. You can also come and just take a quick peek. We've got 32 buildings in there now. Data of the survey, the site descriptions. You can start to see we filled out more detail about certain data than others, but it's a nice quick view of what was just created. And then here's where you can drill into those tables, right? So windows. This may or may not be the one that I just popped in. I think it is, because I didn't give it very good details. Oh, maybe not. This might have been from a while ago. But you start to get a quick picture of the data. Within this, the other pieces are nice. You can see metrics over time for who's been editing, and requests per day. So this is really nice reporting options. And then in the settings, some things that are really important. Marking your content as authoritative will let users know that this is the actual data they want to edit. Prevent this from being deleted, very important. And then we've got some settings. This is how you control who has access and what they can do. So do we want to let people update features or delete them? You have control over all of this. You can even say, if I add a point, can Stephanie edit my data, or do we want to limit that? So again, this goes back to those levels of expertise. Some organizations do this all the time and they're very comfortable, and others might need some more just help navigating this and setting it up for the first time. Actually, back in content, we were looking at the data. Let's go look. I'm going to open up the web map. So you kind of build it from the bottom up, right? We have our database with the pick lists. It's stored here, the data goes in it, and then we have a map. And this is the first step in configuration, where you can determine symbology and the order of things. This is where you can hide fields and show different things. You can say, do I want it to be on top of imagery? This is where we could add other layers, like our parcels or different things. You can set the bookmarks here. So that's when I zoom to Shaw University. That bookmark is set up in the web map. This is probably the most important configuration step, is to establish that here. This is where we set our symbols. If we don't like the way it looks, there's lots of built-in symbols here. You can also do pictures, and all of these different pre-built themes and fonts are included. So there's quite a bit of flexibility here. I'm going to cancel out of that. The other piece that's really important is the pop-ups. When I clicked on that to edit it, this is where the order's determined. So we had resource type first, and then where does it exist? you can reorder these. You can put hints on the fields. We could say, you know what, I don't want state to be collected, and you can literally turn that off and save that configuration. And then when I save this map, the next person to go in, refresh, will see that change. So it's very easy to adjust these configurations. And then we've got all of our tables here. So again, you can configure the pop-ups on those as well. So all the window information that we had, if that's too much or if we want to reorder it, you do that here. You can even put better tips. You can put question marks. We put this in Spanish just to see if we could one time, so that was kind of fun. So there's lots of flexibility that drives that field collection, and it's all, as you can see, you know, once you get trained in how to do things, there's no custom code. It doesn't take redeploying the application. The changes are seen by the users immediately, which is pretty exciting. Lots of flexibility. So that was the map, and we saw the collection piece. The second thing you can do is share a different view of that data out, and we've got a dashboard configured here, and we can look at that with our points. I'm going to refresh this because I think just wanted to see if it, yeah, so we've collected a few points since I had this open this morning. I've been playing around. We can do counters. There's lots of different what they call widgets, so different data filters. Again, this is a configurable view, so no code was written. It's all sort of drag and drop. As you zoom in, we can see the counts updating. We can come in and click a list to zoom on the map. We can also get more detail. You can see, you know, this one obviously we'd filled out a little bit more information, and I think you've got a photo. We can also put links in here, so if you wanted to link it to National Registry, that's all built in. So we've kind of taken it from the database to the where it's hosted, right? It lives in ArcGIS Online. We've published that out for field collection, and then you can share a different view. And we could have different symbols, different color codings here. It's really very flexible. So this has been the architecture model. It was developed first. I think you've seen how comprehensive the data are. And the second, yeah.
Before we make a switch to the other, there were just a couple of questions here.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Yeah, no, not at all. The first question is, does it display your current location?
In the field application, yes. Remember when I opened it, it kind of zoomed to what looked like a subdivision? Yes, it will show you in the field collection app, it will show your current location. I would have to check and see if that's true in the dashboard. We might be able to configure that. So did that answer the question?
If you could follow up afterwards, I'm trying to see.
I'm trying to get the Zoom
We
controls.
open up the chat. Oh, yes, thank you. She said yes, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So the next one, can data collected with CRSurveyor be exported into a printable form that matches our current Microsoft Word PDF forms?
Yes, it might be a two-step process. So when we were in here in our content and we went and looked at that data, there's all the ways to export it. Excel is going to be probably the easiest way to do that. And then if you had a Word document kind of set up like as a mail merge to Excel, that might be the fastest way. That reporting is probably one of the things that could be improved the most in this platform. But I think if you can get it to Excel, usually you can then manipulate it the way you need to pretty quickly if you get it, you know, in a template.
Right. So yeah, so the CRSurveyor, when you bring it back, it's like more like a download, and then kind of how you bring it back would be kind of more of a, like you say, the second step of the process.
Yeah. there are PDFs you can generate, but they're really usually more map focused. than report focused.
Because we're really, yeah, we're not really looking, it kind of is almost like a step backwards to, you know, to take, you know, kind of exporting back into forms, but that's something we would talk about individually, but, you know, we're kind of looking more to kind of keep it in.
I would say question, you know, do you need the PDF report?
And we, right.
You know, showing a live dashboard of the progress meet reporting requirements or the Excel download.
Exactly. And so that's something we've tried to kind of steer away from, but you know, each state is so individual, and that's something we could talk a little more about with. Let's see, the next is Laura. Is it possible to share the link to the file geodatabase to a SHPO? I really want to see it. Our state has our own custom built app that includes a lot more than just building inventory. So the databases won't match, and we can't use CRSurveyor really, but I'd like to check out the fields. And so that would be something kind of internally on our end. We work closely with the Park Service and GIS there. We likely would be able to pull from the Park Service, and that's something we could talk individually as well, kind of on a state by state basis. So
we do have a data dictionary that goes along with it, and so that's a potential option.
When
Stephanie,
we deploy, right, exactly. So that
yeah.
would be something, you know, there's something we could work with on that. So yes, we could. The next is we have an online inventory system that is completely accessible to the public. Volunteers, consultants, and staff can enter data, but it lacks a mobile app component to make field work easy. It's Esri based, so could this app work with the existing system? If so, would the data still be fully visible to the public?
So I think it sounds like you have an Esri based app that already works. You know, setting it up to work with the Esri field apps is probably doable. One thing we've been working with NAPC on and is that for the collector app, the one that we showed, you have to have a login.
Actually, here, I think
Right.
Megan wants to go ahead and answer this live, and I'm trying to see, I'm sorry, to see how to do this. Sean, I might need your help to let Megan answer this question or give her access.
Is Megan an attendee or is Megan the panelist?
You're
Megan Brown.
You're fine. Continue.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, Megan, jump in. I know, so some Esri apps let you serve it out to the public without a login. And then some like Collector require a login. So I think it depends on which app you want to go toward. You know, all of what we're showing in the web browser here, we could share to the public, no problem, if we wanted to. I don't know if I'd recommend, you know, just letting everyone have access to your data because it could get corrupted, but that's possible through the web. If you want to use the Collector application, you do need a named user login. Something to keep on the radar, and I don't have a slide on this, but Esri is coming out with something new, right? It's wouldn't be a year if they didn't release something new. They have something called the Esri Field apps that they're beta-ing, and I think it's going to be pretty revolutionary, potentially in a new way of doing this. So look for that in 2021. I don't know if it's going to require a login or not, but it's supposed to kind of be the next generation for field collection within their platform. And there's some blogs out there. I think they were promoting it over the summer, but it's still Kool-Aid. It's not actually real yet for us. So, okay. We'll keep asking questions. This is really great. I was going to dive into the second module, which is the disaster response. Same format, really, as the first. It's just a different data structure. So as you perhaps respond to a hurricane or an earthquake, tornado, we're probably not going to collect all of the information you saw in the architecture form. It's really a quick pass, but still focused on a digital survey. I'm going to go into this disaster response module, and we can just take a quick look at the database here. It's you know, maybe Megan or Stephanie want to talk a little bit more about how this was born as we pull it up, but I'll grab the point collector.
This is Megan. I'm happy to speak to that a little bit.
Okay.
You know, I think this is born a little bit out of frustration on our part at the Park Service, in that often we are part of the FEMA response for natural and cultural, have our staff deploying to the field to assist you at the state level with doing survey or responding to the disaster in that way. And we kept discovering that there was really no good method to do this, and not one that could work with disconnected editing. So meaning you don't have to be on a signal or on Wi-Fi or those types of things. So this is what it was kind of born out of. And we, you know, it's meant to do disaster response. So it's not nearly as detailed as the architectural survey, and you'll see that as Laura goes through it. But the idea being that, yes, we could share this data with FEMA. FEMA doesn't really have a tool we could use, those types of things. So that is what this is in response to.
I think maybe starting with the dashboard here, if you can see that, you know, obviously it still has a location and a map view. We've got test points kind of all over the place. You can still collect metrics. What's interesting, I think, about this data model is the point, really, the location has just a few fields. What sort of disaster are you responding to? And then a major category, right? So was this location overall, what's the overall status, right? Is it affected, destroyed, major damage? And then these become filterable. And we have some nice pictures here. So as you you know, populate the data, those fields become something you can then filter on. It's very brief. You're going to have some information about the overall damage, and then exterior, interior, and then a few key pieces of information about those. So let me, I'll go back to the test. So this was our point layer, and you can see, you know, address, city, state, but very simple. And then if we go into, most of the information is going to be stored in the damage record. Let's view that. So this is where we could say, what was the type of disaster? You know, one location could be hit multiple times by different things over the years. So we could say, well, this time it was a fire. Is there a disaster name, the date? Here's your overall category, and then you start to get into those specifics. So for each one, we might have roof damage. We wanted to keep the categories consistent. That helps with the filtering and symbology. So they all sort of have that same range of criteria, but then you might say this was roof collapse or a different type of roof damage. And then we always have an other column where you can type things in. So the basic categories were roof, wall, foundation, and then we kind of go into interior, exterior, overall, landscape damage, any structural hazards or further evaluation. This is probably not the most user-friendly way to look at this data. Let me switch back over to Collector and we can see it in action. Apologies, I have to keep switching apps here. All right, so we're back in our app. We can go to our maps. Happen to be shared to the same group, which is nice. You can tell, you can make different thumbnails for these in that web map, so it's easier to distinguish. You can share these to different groups of people. So again, this is how it finds your current location here. And it's, you know, you can add GPS receivers to that. We can see the first one had the imagery-based map, and this one has this other kind. That's just to show you guys what it might look like. And then if we want to file, let's go to the high school. We have a middle school, high school, elementary collected here. We can click the layer and you place your point. So it can either grab it from where you are, or you can actually place it on the structure, which might be good. In the disaster, you might not be able to get over to where the actual damage was, or you can put it out in the field. And then this is it, right? Leesville Road High School. You can add this. We could also turn this into a pick list. You could say it's in process, and then quickly submit the point. So once you submit the point, we want to add the damage record to it. And again, that's so you could have multiple damage records associated with it. We could say this is flooding. Give it a specific name or incident, if you're tracking that. Obviously the date pre-populates, but you can go back in time. If the flood was actually on Saturday, you can go back. You can put comments in. Here's where we have our pick lists for the different fields. And just to show you a few things, maybe the roof has major damage. Well, it's flooding. That's kind of silly, but you get the idea. And then I think this is where, between the Park Service and NAPC have put quite a good bit of thought onto the different types of things that could be, here, we'll look at walls, that could be damaged for each one of these categories. There's always the option to do other multiple damage. So there's lots of places to track additional comments. Again, you could reorder these if you wanted to. Is it accessible? No, right? So it should be a quick way in a digital format to get a first pass after a disaster. I do like the landscape categories because, that might be the worst part of the property. Fallen trees, overgrown, feature collapse, any structural hazards. We looked at those. Animals and reptiles did make it in the list, but you can imagine ground shifts, hazardous materials, all sorts of utilities down was in there. And then you do have an option to tag an action here if we need to get barricades. Does it require further evaluation, maybe engineering? Again, the photos you can take from your camera, or you can add those later, if you're in the office and you didn't have a chance to. As part of both of these applications, we have an administrator guide and a user guide. And some of those steps for the user is going to say, how do you size your photos appropriately so they're not, 6 megs when you upload them? How do you download the map for editing, are some of those common steps that kind of come with this. So that's real quick. I mean, this one's really lightweight. Again, a lot of flexibility, and it goes back to that data model. And the same thing, the web map, you configure everything and then you kind of share it to the field app. And then we share it to our dashboard. I'm going to flip back over to the PowerPoint real quick. And I see a question coming in. Can you select more than one thing from a drop-down menu? No. So we would say pick one and then use the notes field to indicate the other. And that's where I think in those criteria we saw like needs further evaluation for architecture, you'd have to put a note in that it needed archaeology as well. You can add multiple photos, but I think Megan, and that's why we wanted to be sure we had all those notes options.
One other quick question I see that was put in the answered and still needs to be answered. And this is more of a Megan and Park Service question. It says, is local government use of the CRSurveyor eligible for funding via CLG subgrants? We received pushback about survey projects that do not include National Register nominations, and this format is less intensive than our state survey.
So I did a written answer in the Q&A, but for those of you that aren't monitoring that as well, we require CLGs to maintain an inventory and we require it to be current. So I believe that it would be an eligible expense for the Park Service to provide the CLG, or the state provide the CLG with CRSurveyor to use as a tool to maintain their local inventory. Now, if you are funding a survey project for them and you have very specific survey guidelines, which I would love to have another conversation with you about, because the point is that we know what's there, then that might be different. Certainly, they might be able to use the CRSurveyor and then add additional data that you're requesting to it. But I think we're kind of, if the community was really interested in the product, I think them applying for a grant just to get the surveyor tool as kind of like equipment for them to use would probably be acceptable. And that might be a way for you to handle it if it doesn't include all of the fields that your survey does include. So, and again, as Laura mentioned, there's ways to customize it. I do want to clarify for everyone to keep in mind that this is a collector app. So it's not meant to take the place of your database. And it's really intended to capture the information that people need to capture when they're out in the field. So a lot of the like National Register fields and architectural history descriptions and those types of things that you would add more in kind of a desktop setting, those have been removed from this. So this is really intended for it to be a field app, as Laura called it. So I just want to kind of reiterate that. Hopefully that kind of answers it, and we can talk about that more in our groups as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the other benefits, using this Esri platform is very much a standard in a lot of organizations. And so hopefully if this isn't a full match for your database, it's enough that you can, use it and kind of share data within the platform that you already have and translate data between two if they need to be. There's lots of tools to migrate data between data models and things like that. So just kind of wanted to recap. We talked a bit about the architecture model and did some demos, kind of got into the disaster recovery. Here's an example of some of those fields that we collected there. Looking a little bit at the data model. We talked about that. And then again, just pointing out this same platform, we made the dashboard look different on purpose so that you could sort of see some of the different configurations that are available. There's all sorts of different templates and themes and colors and ways of presenting these, and these are all drag and drop. You could spend a good bit of time just playing around with dashboards once you have the data behind the scenes. A little bit about what's next, and I hope this is okay with Stephanie and Megan. We're working on Spanish, so it's been very interesting to actually translate the databases into Spanish, so you can start to see what the architecture one looks like in its translation, in the hopes that this could be used in more places. I don't know if we want to mention anything more there, but there would be a new Spanish option for both modules coming soon. That's exciting. And then I just wanted to bring up a couple things that two of the partners had recently done this year. Once you get out there and you start using it and you have the data, they were wanted to do some post-processing. And I think this is where the power of the Esri platform comes in, because absolutely there's tools to help you apply the addresses after, or get a unique ID created after the fact, to tag places automatically with the zip code or the county or the state. I mean, everything a GIS platform can then do for you, you've collected the data and it's in the right format. So some of these are just a couple quick examples of that. One is, extracting the images, right? So when we collect those photos, they're also being stored up with that database, but you can get them out and you can, this is a little script that says how you want to name it. So, you're starting with a very low lift, kind of low cost entry point. Absolutely get that digital collection. It should be really easy for folks to learn how to use and get access to, but then you have the power of GIS behind it, and everything you can do in the Esri platform. So that's what's exciting, the analytics and everything. it takes off after you collect the data. So hopefully this was useful. I want to thank, you know, the National Park Service and NAPC for letting me come and talk to you guys today. It's been a joy to work on this program with them. We're so excited to see people adopting it and taking off with just all of the new capabilities that are out there. So thank you. And I'll pause there. I don't know if we have any further questions.
Yeah, this is Megan. Thank you, Laura. We appreciate this, and we are excited too. This has been a long time coming. So, so yeah, Stephanie, if you have any other comments, and if y'all have any other questions for Laura,
No, I
now
think we have covered a good bit here. And like I say, I appreciate everybody's support and working on this presentation. Laura, thank you for joining us, for your time today. I think it really covered this well, and it's you said it best doing that, so I appreciate it.
Excellent. All right, well, I'll let you guys continue on, and I'll leave here. If you do think of anything else, you know, certainly reach through Stephanie, and we can try to answer those questions if you think of them later. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I think on my end, that's about all that I have. I did put, you know, my email in the chat if anybody has, you know, immediate questions. And I think, as Paula had mentioned, that there's also the directorate. Both Maria and I field that email, so we always can catch emails there too, and that's the one on the website, so you can really reach me either way. Any last final questions, or otherwise I think that's it on our end.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Stephanie. This was perfect. Thank you, everyone from NAPC. I greatly appreciate y'all being here, and know that we couldn't do what we do with the CLG program without y'all. So I think unless anyone has any closing statements. Corey, do you have? We can add another 7 minutes to your life today, and we'll have a 30-minute break, and then we come back together at 3:30 Eastern time, and that's the chance for you to introduce yourselves to each other. We have a lot of new people, so that'll be exciting. And then we're going to do some group discussions of all the topics that you submitted, and we're going to try to do some breakout groups in Zoom. So get ready and pray that technology is our friend this afternoon. So certainly I'm sure this will all stir some thoughts, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to answer questions throughout the rest of today and tomorrow. So we will see y'all again at 3:30. Thank you.